Good evening. My name is Kathy Braby. I am the president of the Legacy Republican Club, and I'd like to welcome you all to our City Council and Mayoral Candidate Forum. We'd like to thank Pastor Rick McCoy and Pastor Tim Muselton for allowing us to use the Calvary Christian Center. Many people don't realize the importance of our local elections. They think they only get out and they only vote for the state and the federal elections. But in many cases, your local elections are actually some of the most important because that's where the majority of your tax money is spent. So I really appreciate everybody taking an interest in coming out tonight to hear our candidates. Tonight, for our invocation, I'd like to welcome Jeff Conley up for our invocation this evening.
Let's pray. Gracious and Heavenly Father, we are thankful for many things. We're thankful for this great nation that we live in, for this great state and this great city. We're also thankful, Father, for those who serve to give us the freedoms here that we enjoy. Father, we pray tonight you would bless these men and women who are coming forward to want to serve God, serve you in a different way through service to the city. I ask that you bless each and every one of them tonight, and it's through your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you. For anybody that has questions that they would like to, that they haven't submitted via email and they'd still like to submit, we do have back in the corner some index cards. Please see Roy, and you can fill out any questions that you have. We also have voter registration cards back there. You have to be registered to vote, by Monday, so I highly recommend getting them in the mail by Friday, just to make sure that there's nothing that holds them up. Roy's also got those back there. We're going to now have our pledges to the American flag and to the Texas flag. I'd like to welcome Judge James D. Piazza, Justice of the Peace for Precinct 2, to lead us in the Texas flag, or the American flag, and Constable Michael Truitt from Precinct 2 for the Texas flag. Thank you, gentlemen. Now I'd like to ask all of our elected officials to please stand and introduce themselves. Councilman Boyer.
Richard Boyer, City Council, Place 2. Kurt Mayfield, City Council, Place 1. Joe McCurry here.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Jim Johnson. Jim is a local accountant and attorney from the Colony. He got his law degree from Texas A&M, Texas Wesley University. He's an adjunct professor at Texas A&M and also an attorney in Carrollton.
Thank you.
Welcome everyone to tonight's City Council Forum. I recognize a lot of faces from last year. The format will be similar to last year, and at this time I'd like to invite all the candidates. I'll call your name to the stage, starting with Joe McCurry, Eddie McCormick, Kirk Mikulek, Yasmin Agudelo, Maybe you start at the left and then, yeah, fill in that order. So we'll have the mayoral candidates on the left and place one on the right. And in a minute, I'll give Mr. Boyer a chance to speak. In addition to leading our pledge today, we're privileged to have the most overqualified timekeeper in the history of forums. Justice of the Peace Judge James D. Piazza will keep time for you. And we have very few rules, but we have some rules, and the rules are simple. We'll start with opening statement. You will each have a chance to give a 1-minute introduction of yourself, and we will start right to left. So, Ms. Agudelo, we will start with you, and then move to the left, and then closing will go in the reverse order. The questions I have in my hand are a mix of questions that were submitted by email tonight, people that handed them to me as I walked in and that I got from Roy. I am the only person that has seen the complete set of questions. They haven't been shared with any of the candidates before now. I've gone through the questions myself, and I tried to filter them to address the most significant issues facing the city, but more than that, the questions that were the most common issues raised by you. Many of the questions were repeat, multiple. Those certainly will be asked. We had an overwhelming number of questions submitted, so they won't all be asked, but we'll try to get to as many as we can. And to help us get to as many as we can, each of you will have limited time, only 1 minute, to give your response to the questions. And Judge DiPiazza will give you a indication when you have 30 seconds, 10 seconds in red, and then a stop sign. And when the stop sign comes up, I will mention the name of the next person to answer the question. In general, all 4 candidates, even though we have mayoral and place, but all 4 candidates will answer the same questions, and I'll try to foreshadow who will be first so you can start thinking of your answer, and then we will go in order, and I'll have an even distribution. Okay, and with that, I'd like to, yes. Very good. So you can pick up the mic if you want, so you'll be ready for your opening statement. And I'd like to bring to the stage Richard Boyer for a few comments before we start. But before I hand the mic to him, I'd like to request you all to silence your mobile devices. And through the course of the forum, to show a respect for all of our candidates, I would ask that you remain respectfully silent. No, certainly, hopefully no jeers or other loud cheers at all, except for now. I would ask you to give all candidates and Mr. Boyer a hearty round of applause and welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim. I'm happy to be the opening act before the headliners, so I'll be as brief as I can. I'll try to keep an eye on Judge DiPiazza here. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's really great to see so many people that care about their community in such a way that they'll come out and participate and attend something like this. It really is important. And I also appreciate and want to thank the Legacy Republican Club for hosting this event. I'm Richard Boyer. I currently serve as your representative in Place 2 on the City Council, and I am up for re-election, but I am unopposed. So that's why there's only 4 chairs, and I just get a couple minutes. But just a little bit about me. I'm usually a we and us guy instead of an I and me, but this is a chance where it's election season, so we do have to kind of talk about ourselves a little. Lived in the colony for nearly 20 years, been married to my wife May for 20 years, and our 3 children have never known any place but the colony as their home. Was first elected in 2009, and have been happy to serve ever since, and look forward to the next 3 years being able to serve the community. Been a lot of changes since 2009 when I first was elected. Back then, you used to hear words like Maharishi that you don't hear anymore, and when someone said they were going to Nebraska, you thought they were leaving the state. Things aren't that way now. I'm really proud of a lot of the work that I'm able to do that you may not be able to see if you watch the meetings twice a month. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the liaison for council on the CDC board. That's a board that does fantastic work for our community, and I used to serve on that board prior to running for council. Also, thanks to Mayor and Council, have been put me in positions such as on the redistricting committee, where I was able to lead the effort to redraw the district lines when it was time to do so, to more fairly distribute the population of the city into voting districts. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is the work that the city's been able to accomplish down in Austin. That's an area of strength of mine. Because of relationships that we built, we really are on the map with elected officials and state agencies down there where we haven't been before. We've been active in promoting legislation that helps the city and opposing legislation that would hurt the city, and we'll continue to do so. In fact, there was a group from the city down a couple weeks ago where we met with the executive director of Texas Department of Transportation to talk about concerns that we had with the 423 construction. And that's just something that wouldn't have happened a few years ago. We didn't have the relationships or the ability to get such a meeting. And now we got to sit across the table and have our concerns heard, and hopefully we'll see some improvement in some of the things that we discussed in that meeting. Real quick before my time's up, new fiscal year starts day after tomorrow. There's a few things that I'm extremely proud of that are going to start happening. Once we are in the new budget year, we are going to dedicate more resources and money towards street repair and construction, alley repair and construction, and sidewalk repair and construction than we have in the past. We're adding personnel to public safety, which we all know is important, and we're continuing that process to expand our wastewater treatment plants. All these positions tonight are at-large positions, and so therefore we all represent about 40,000 people, and those people are a lot happier when the toilet's flush. So we are super happy about the expansion of that. I am on the ballot. I'm the very last thing on the ballot, but it's only a one-page. Please vote for me. I humbly ask for your vote, and enjoy the rest of the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer, and we'll go straight to opening statements. Ms. Agudelo.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the Legacy Republican Club for hosting this very important event for our city. And then I would like to introduce myself. My name is Yasmin Agudelo. I was born and raised here in the colony, went to all the public schools, left for college, and then came back here. I'm running for city council because I think that the colony has changed a lot. And I think that there's been a lot of growth, and I think that there needs to be new perspectives and a new voice in our city leadership who understands the changes that this community has gone through and the different perspectives of everyone in our city. Thank you.
Mr. Mikulik.
Good evening, how y'all doing? My name is Kurt Mikulik, and I'm your Place 1 City Councilman representing the entire city, and I've lived here since '98. I'm married to my wife, Charlize. I have a son who's a freshman at the Colony High School and has gone to Lakeview Middle School in Etheridge. I'm asking for your support in my campaign for re-election, and if re-elected, I want to continue to work to improve our streets, alleys, and sidewalks. I want to continue to recruit new economic development, which that economic development enables people to live the American dream. I want to keep working with our businesses to mentor our students in the schools to enable them to live that American dream and know how to go for an interview, such as things with mock interviews and role playing. So thank you very much.
Mr. McCormick.
Good evening, and thank you guys for sharing your time with me on this Tuesday night. My name is Eddie McCormick. I am running for mayor here in the colony. I am not a career politician, but I am a career citizen. I've been here since '92, so that's 23 years in the colony, which is half my life. My background is commercial construction. I've worked for one company here in DFW for 17 years and moved out of that into the association construction industry. I'm currently executive director over two associations. One is a DFW and one is a national. I'd like to use that knowledge and that experience to help the colony continue to grow and help relieve some of the issues we're facing with some of this new growth. I am a single father. I have a teenage daughter in the Colony High School, so any of you have teenagers at home, please pray for me about that. It has gotten a little easier. I'm a proud dad here. She did become homecoming queen last week, so But thank you for coming out again, and I hope that I can answer a lot of your questions this evening. If not, please see me at the back.
And Mr. McCory.
Hello, I'm Joe McCurry. I've lived here for over 25 years, moved here back in 1988. In 2002, ran for the city council and was elected my first term representing Place 3. I was on there for 6 years. I took a year off, came back in 2009 and was elected as mayor and have been the mayor since then. We have gone through a lot of changes in this city. When I took office in 2009, there was a recession going on, but that was not going to stop us. Through leadership and hard work, we took out a plan the whole council agreed to. Economic development was going to be our number one thing. And we went after it and we got it. Top Golf, we got Nebraska Furniture Mart, the largest single retail store in America, right here brought to this town. We also made the Colony City Hall as customer service number one, and that is very important. You don't like going to the DMV and them saying, next, come here. City Hall will now help you, and they will treat you with respect.
Thank you, candidates. And now we'll move to the first question, which will go to Mr. Mikulik first. And the submitted question is this. Development along Highway 121 seems to be going very well, but other parts of the city are not doing quite as well. What can be done to improve the economy of our town north of Memorial?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Well, we've been partnering with folks along Main Street. There are landlords at the corner of South Colony and Page, and those are individual landowners which we've reached out to, and we welcome their efforts, which have been a little bit behind, actually greatly behind. We've got a bar right now that's burned down, car repair that burned down, and they're dragging their feet. And as a government, there are things we can do to encourage them, but right now it's in their court to build that place back up and make it functioning and as an open business. So really, we've proven that we can collaborate with businesses. We've got to encourage those folks to where either the prices are great enough to where they find someone who wants to buy it and develop it, and we'll partner with those folks. And that's what we're going to do to continue to have growth in those areas north of Memorial. Thank you.
Ms. Agudelo, same question.
So north of Memorial is where I actually grew up, and it's been incredible to see all of the development on 121, but it has been slightly underwhelming where I am. And I believe that the government needs to provide support to a lot of the local businesses in that area. That area is dominated by local businesses, smaller local businesses, unlike the chains that we have on 121. And I think by providing the support to these local businesses, other companies and other businesses will see that growth and will want to move to these areas. A lot of that development on 121 was brought because of Nebraska Furniture Store, and I think that once we get a larger company like that to see the potential north of Memorial, more companies will flock there.
Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, and great question. I've been all over the city in the past 3 weeks, and especially in that area off of Page and South Colony, and it seems to be every person that I speak to is what's going to happen with the colony proper, with their colony, the colony that they knew when they moved here in the late 70s, early 80s. These retail centers, strip centers over at those corners are badly in need of redesign and retrofitting. And that's only going to happen if some of these ordinances that we have continue to get changed as they have in the past few years to make it easier for those owners of those developments to make those changes more in line with what we saw and what happened over on North Colony and Main Street with the Kroger.
And Mr. McCurry.
Thank you. You know, the nice thing about America is we do have, private businesses, and they own their land, they own their shops. and they determine their future. The City Council, we put together an economic development package several years ago and went to the South Colony shops, and we asked, that we would pitch in a large package in order to get that refaced. We were willing to put money up in order to make that look, like a diamond at South Colony and Page. And the owner said, nope, not interested, go away, don't bother me. Your government, I'm not interested in your money. We didn't have strings. All we were asking was that they, put together a nice looking building. We even had concept plans drawn up and provided to them. This is the nice thing about America and our private industry. They get to choose. We can make offers, and that's all we can do, and we have done that across the city to help our small business.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. McCurry, and the question is this. All the new businesses coming to the colony should mean a significant increase in city revenues. What are your priorities for spending or otherwise using those additional revenues?
The council had a recent retreat in which we set down our priorities, in light of all of the success that we have had in economic development. That success is going to be pointed towards revamping our infrastructure. As you've seen, we just went out for an $21 million bond in order to take our wastewater treatment plant to the next level. We are putting out more and more streets, alleyways, sidewalks. We have hired a hotshot crew in order to help build that infrastructure better, faster. And those are the priorities that we are going after now, the infrastructure. There are some things within City Hall that we have to upgrade because we have had to keep them at such a low level that, you can only let IT work, for instance, go by 5 years, and we're greater than 10 years on many of the things, in IT, for instance. And we have to build some things inside of the government. But in order to offset some of those costs, we have made the city more efficient.
Mr. McCormick.
Joe touched on some things, the hotshot crew. I think the increased tax revenue, I would hope that even though the budget is completed this fiscal year, that more of those funds would go towards street repairs, curb repairs, sidewalk repairs. It's over and over and over. Those are the comments that I have gotten from the people who have opened their doors to me these past few weeks. They don't understand why all of this growth is happening, why all of this tax revenue is coming in, but it's 6, 7, 8 months to a year before a simple request of fixing the sidewalk happens in their neighborhood. I personally emailed Mr. Lavender and asked about 3 specific houses, and because those homeowners didn't get an answer, I got an answer the next day, and they were put on the schedule, and this was back in August. They're put on the schedule to be completed in January.
Ms. Agudelo.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. All the new businesses coming to the colony should mean a significant increase in city revenues. What are your priorities for spending or otherwise using those additional revenues?
So looking through past budgets, due to this development, the sales revenue every year has grown, roughly by $300,000 a year. And it's going to continue with all of the new businesses that are coming in. And my first priority would, like everyone else up here, would be the infrastructure, and it would be the roads. However, because it is the citizens of the colony who helped fund this growth, who helped fund these new businesses coming in, I would also like to be able to provide programs that I believe would help the residents of the colony. A focus of mine would be library programs, programs for families to work to attend together, programs for children, programs for our future. If the residents are the ones who gave their money to promote this growth in our city, I believe they should be rewarded. So my 2 focuses would be roads, the infrastructure and roads, and community programs for families.
And Mr. Mikulik.
Thank you. My priorities would be, as everyone has mentioned, roads, streets, and alleys. Additionally, we need to look at our fire departments. We've got Austin Ranch, we've got the Tribute. We're going to get to a point where we need to build those new fire stations. Those cost money to open, money to staff. Those are my two big priorities to use that additional money with. Thank you.
Thank you. And next question is one that was handwritten and handed to me through Roy at the back of the table, given to him. And we'll start with Ms. Agudelo. Question is, how can we get the power company or the city to straighten up the many streetlights which are not vertical? If you want to add to that any other infrastructure, please feel free. So the question again, as written, was how can we get the power company or city to straighten up the many streetlights which are not vertical?
Well, if that's an issue, I believe the first step is communication, trying to figure out what streetlights are not straight up, what streetlights are not working. I know we have a lot of problems with streetlights that are out, and it makes driving around the community a little terrifying. So the first step would be communication. Why are these lights out? Why has this remained a problem for so long? I do believe that this city government, city manager, they're very efficient. They know what they're doing. And I believe that with the proper channels, meeting together, working together, this issue can be solved with ease.
Mr. Mikulek.
Mr. Johnson, can you repeat that question, please?
Yes. How can we get the power company or city to straighten up the many streetlights which are not vertical? And if you want to add any other infrastructure comments, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Currently, folks can go to our website, they can go to a page, they can list an address or a cross-section, a cross-street, and they can let City Hall know that there's a street light that's out, something that needs to be repaired, investigated. So we have that mechanism in place on our city website. You may also call if you don't have web access, or if you're traveling during the day, you can call our customer service, and they can take care of that for you. Thank you so much.
Mr. McCormick?
Same thing. I know that the system is in place to report those. I'd like to take that a step further and have someone from the city reply back to that citizen and let them know when, instead of just leaving it an open date and them not knowing. That isn't the city's responsibility. It's more Atmos or CoServe, but the city does have a strong voice when it comes to getting that repaired.
And Mr. McCurry.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing problem. We have our police officers, they have a job at night since they're out roaming the streets. They go by and those telephone poles that are turned off, they stop, they get out, they get the number off of the pole, they file directly with the city staff. City staff calls all of those in to the appropriate company, whether it's CoServe or whether it's Atmos and Encore, and those lights get replaced. We have that program already in place in order to fix those on an ongoing basis. The other thing that can be done about straightening them, that's been an issue between us and them for many years. I don't know the answer to that. The electric companies feel that they can do whatever they want. Just call them and call a complaint direct into them about service on your home. You'll see what I mean. But we continue to develop those contacts in order to get things better.
Thank you. This next question is directed to the incumbents, and there will be a follow-up question that's similar but different to the challengers. So we'll ask Mr. McCurry to answer first, then Mr. Mikulek. And the question is, both of you have been on the city council for some years. What have you not accomplished that you hope to accomplish in your next term if you are reelected, and why have you not been able to accomplish it before?
You know, I got my flyer out from 2009 and looked at that flyer and the things that were listed on that flyer. Everything that was on that flyer was either completed or under construction. 423 was the one that took the longest because AT&T wouldn't move their utilities. They are the strongest lobby in any state, anywhere. They feel they can do what they want. That is one of the things in Austin that we are going to go after in order to change so that TxDOT highways and their projects and our city projects cannot be delayed because of them.
And Mr. Mikulek.
Yes, when I ran for place one 3 years ago, The items that we had as a point of emphasis were police and fire protection, economic development, and we've got to still improve our infrastructure. Back before the turn of the century, around the 98 time frame, there was a bond that went out, an election for streets. That didn't pass from the residents. A couple years later, 5 Star went to a bond election. That passed. So it looks like folks are picking things that aren't necessarily vital infrastructure, and we need to put a package out there that shows this is of importance, and we need to get that moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the question for the challengers. We'll start with Mr. McCormick. What is it that you believe your opponent is doing or not doing that leads you to believe he needs to be replaced? And what would you do differently if you were elected?
Well, I think our entire council has done a great job. However, there is a big picture with our city. It's not focused on one neighborhood. It's not focused on one section of town. It's the entire city and everybody in this city. Now, in order to continue this growth that we have the correct way, again, my 4 years on Planning and Zoning Commission Board, the last 2, we spent numerous hours changing and amending a lot of those ordinances to make those building standards more acceptable and easier for developers and business owners to come to our city. There's still more that needs to be changed. I think whether I win or not, hopefully the existing council will look at those and get those changed as well, so that we're not the city that's hard to do business with like we've heard for so many years.
And Ms. Agudelo.
First of all, I agree. I think that they've done a wonderful job. They helped shape the city where I grew up in, and I really couldn't be happier. I had a great experience here. However, new voices foster new ideas. The city has grown, and we are at a point of incredible potential. And I believe that in order to continue this growth, to take advantage of all of the changes that have happened, we need new blood. We need someone who has new ideas and a lot of energy and commitment to this city. And I believe that in my past experiences here, working with the library, creating new events, thinking of new ideas to help the families of this city, I think that I would be a great candidate and a great choice for City Council Place 1.
Thank you. Next question will go to Mr. McCormick first. This was a question that came by email. Are there any examples of businesses that have not developed in our city because they were not allowed to by the city? Or any examples where our city administration has hurt economic development that otherwise would have occurred here?
I feel like that email was probably directly to me. Everyone knows my background is construction, and one of those ordinances that we amended on P&Z back in 2012 was the building standard in the overlay district. The overlay district was heavily regulated what type of building materials could be on the outside of those buildings. It was regulated to brick and stone. Now, there's very few franchises, companies, businesses that have designed their buildings that way. Top Golf is covered with eaves, synthetic stucco and stone. In-N-Out is completely stucco. That wasn't the case until 2013. And lo and behold, we've got some more businesses coming with those designs. What those businesses want to see is when they take their sign down off the building, you still know what that building is. In-N-Out's not going to come to the colony if they have to build their building out of brick. They'll bypass. They were here 3 years ago building in DFW. They came back in 2013.
Mr. McCurry.
Would you repeat the question one more time?
Yes, the question was, are there any examples of businesses that have not developed in our city because they were not allowed to by the city? Or any examples where our city administration has actually hurt economic development that otherwise would have occurred here?
You know, businesses that have been denied, one recently, it was a car sales company. Car sales, they don't bring any revenue, they don't bring any benefit in tax dollars. They use services, and the car dealership that was going to be there would only have 3 or 4 people. They were not allowed. The council voted them down for the fact that that was not best use of the land on 121. The overlay district was put in place so that we could protect a jewel that we have sitting out there on 121. Without putting in higher standards along the jewel corridor for your city, you just get anything. How many cities do you travel into where, you have a junkyard sitting next to, a nice restaurant? That happens, and we wanted to make sure that that didn't happen. That's why we have stricter standards in our gateway corridors, is to protect our view and to make it look nice for us.
Thank you. Ms. Agudelo.
So I personally do not know of any businesses that have been denied being able to be built in the colony. But as to the second part of the question, where if businesses have been hurt by economic development, the businesses along Main Street have been hurt due to construction, and that's a necessary part of the growth of the city. I believe that we can do a lot to help those businesses, small things here and there, to guide them through this very long process of construction and growth on 423, but I believe that in the long run it will be beneficial to the city.
And Mr. Mikulik.
Thank you. Yes, recently there was a multifamily project that came along. It was a very nice conceptual plan. We denied it because we felt like it wasn't the best use of that land. We wanted to reserve that land for economic development, for things that are bringing in sales tax dollars and more retail, and we denied that application. Thank you.
Okay, then thank you. All excellent answers, and appreciate that. The next two questions are less issue-oriented and more oriented at people that wanted to learn more about you personally or your background. And we'll start with Ms. Agudelo. The question is, please describe your qualifications or experience that make you the best person to work with staff on developing an annual city budget.
Wonderful. So I have been involved with the library ever since I was in high school, and I believe that having an exposure to budgets, to figuring out how much money we need to buy these things, I helped create the teen room, the teen reading area in the Colony Library that still exists today. And as a young person, I did not know all of the nuances, but that provided a wonderful foundation for all of the activities that I've done so far. I have helped create budgets when I worked for a nonprofit in DC. And nonprofit budgets, you do not have a lot of money to work with, so you have to be particular. You have to focus on the priorities, what is most important. And so in working with city council and city manager, I've had a lot of experience compromising and debating and focusing. What do we need the most, and what can we do to help the most people?
Thank you. Mr. Mikulik.
Mr. Johnson, can you repeat that question, please?
Yes. Please describe your qualifications or experience that makes you the best person to work with the staff on developing an annual city budget.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. With my years of experience on the City Council, I've had the opportunity to participate in 10 budgets. And in those budgets, we balance the needs to maintain infrastructure, essential services, and protect the residents. Along with that, we've done something pretty cool, especially the last several years with the support of council. All these great new businesses that are coming into town, they don't just sit out there, maybe write a check here or there. We bring them into our schools. They've been in the middle schools, they've been in the elementary schools, they've been in the high schools. In the high school and middle schools, they've been doing role play for interviews for kids looking for their first interview for their first job. Nebraska Furniture Mart, Topgolf, they've talked to culinary arts students, and In and Out is also the role playing. So that's something very cool and unique that we're doing now. Thank you.
Mr. McCormick.
As I mentioned before, even in my first 17 years in the commercial construction industry, the last 5 were a project manager and estimator. So towards the end of that, I was responsible for budgets including the Cowboys Project in Arlington, where we did the significant amount of walls and ceilings in that building. And then after I left there, becoming an association executive director, I head up 2 associations, and I'm responsible for that budget with input from both of those board of directors, a board of 13 and the local board of 11. And those budgets are, of course, not as heavy as a city budget, but they work and operate in the same way.
And Mr. McCurry.
Thank you. Like I said earlier, I've been on the city council since 2002 with 1 year off in 2009. Have done many of those budgets, but not just working with those budgets. I mean, outside of that, in my personal life, I mean, I have to have a job. My mayor's pay doesn't quite, satisfy things. So, I work for the largest financial provider of financial software in the world. And I work with the top tier 100 banks every day. So I am well versed in the financial markets and with the financial industry itself. But more than that, former Mayor Dillard and I, when 121 was going in as a toll road, we set out to make that a benefit for our city and not a hindrance. And we were able to negotiate $129 million to date in order to put in to work our infrastructure streets, North Colony, South Colony, Page, Memorial Underpass. Thank you.
And next question, we'll start with Mr. Mikulek. Please describe your community service background and passion for community service.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Got to touch on it a while ago. And the great thing, the question is, my community service? Really? I would say our community service. As we mentioned a while ago, we've got these businesses that we're bringing into the schools. Some of you may know this. 40% of the kids that go to our schools are on free reduced lunches. So either they have one parent at home or they might have 2 that work long hours. And by bringing these businesses in, I've seen kids' faces light up when they do a successful mock interview, when they're in the culinary arts room at the high school and the head chef from Topgolf tells a young man, "What a great jambalaya you made." These are real life things that these kids get prepared, whether they're going directly into the workforce or they're going to go into the military, they're going to go into education. They have confidence and real life feedback from people in industry, and that's my passion.
Thank you. Ms. Aguilera.
I have been involved in community service and volunteering probably since middle school, and in large part due to the incredible volunteers and community leaders in this city. I volunteered ever since high school in the library, continued to volunteer there during my summers home from university. I was volunteering in homeless shelters, tutoring children when I was at university in Washington. And then I've come back home, and I have volunteered at a Hope Store, a women's shelter in Plano, as well as doing a lot of activities for the Georgetown Alumni Association here in Dallas. And a large part is because of the community leaders that inspired me so young. I had so many wonderful examples that I couldn't help but try to follow in their footsteps. They are who have inspired me to stay committed to this community. Thanks.
Mr. McCurry.
Thank you. Outside of the council and having a full-time job, councilmen also have to be the liaisons and the chairman of different committees throughout the city. And I have served on several different committees, and currently I am the chairman of the Facilities Committee, reviewing all of our facilities. But my real passion is, as a Marine, is the support of our veterans. And we have a very, very strong American Legion post here, helping those veterans and getting to know now our young veterans that are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. My son recently just got back. He's from the Army. His twin brother is in the Navy. We need to look out after those veterans, and this is very, very important. And there's nothing more rewarding than helping those individuals that have given everything or put everything on the line for their country.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick.
That was a great comment, and I'll use some of my minute for that because I hats off to the colony and what Joe's done with our veterans. You know, having a father who was in the Air Force and being in a city like the colony, if he were still alive today, would just be humbled by what the colony has done for the veterans compared to other cities around DFW. Now, my community service, it started after 5 years in this city. Even though we got paid $5 a call, I was one of the 4 or 6 volunteer firemen here in the colony when there was only 4 paid guys. So I did that for a little over a year and a half and really enjoyed that and working under Chief Morrison at the time. I'm also co-president of the Colony High School Cheer Booster Club, the only guy on a board of 7, so a little hectic sometimes. But and tomorrow, actually, we have put together a voter registration rally at the high school with Principal Baxter and Ms. McCarty, so the students will actually know that that's the first step of voting. We've had plenty of kids come up to me at games, hey, I'm going to vote for you, I'm going to vote for you. Have you registered? No, what's that? So we've helped the school put that together so that those kids will learn about that.
Thank you. It seems every year, in addition to local issues, we get some people that want you to address national issues, either because maybe they think you're running for president or want you to. And last year was immigration. This year, we have a national question involving Planned Parenthood, and I'll read it, and we'll start with Mr. Mikulek. Currently, there is no Planned Parenthood facility in the colony. If the organization applied, would you support a certificate of occupancy for Planned Parenthood in the colony? And would you encourage funding of Planned Parenthood services for our community?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. If Planned Parenthood came forward with an application and they met all of the codes, then they're allowed to come in. From a standpoint of encouraging funding, raising funding, no, sir, I would not encourage or help raise funds. Thank you.
Ms. Aguilera.
I believe currently that our city has access to multiple health services, hospitals, OBGYNs, services that can help provide the services that Planned Parenthood provides. Like Mr. Mikulek said, if they had filled in all of the paperwork, they have done their due diligence, they have followed every single rule, every single law, then yes. But personally, I believe that an organization like Planned Parenthood would be too much at this point. There are plenty of services already here in our area.
Mr. McCormick.
I myself agree. I would say no, but I would take it to a step further, as the council has denied some developers and business owners coming to town a place to build. I would use that same practice when it comes to Planned Parenthood.
And Mr. McCurry.
Thank you. You know, I agree that government, you know, is there to assist any business in order to put them on the ground and bring them to our community. But when it comes to funding, you know, that's a total different issue. And the council, and as your elected officials, we need to be very careful about those businesses that we fund in order to make sure that they represent what our city is about. And Planned Parenthood being in a controversy today, I believe that our citizens, if they did not want Planned Parenthood here, that they would go out of business, and our citizens would actually get them to leave, and not the government. It should not be the government coming in to businesses like that. Our citizens are quite capable of doing that for themselves.
Thank you. Next question. We'll start with Mr. McCormick. What needs for its residents do you believe the city is not currently meeting? And what is your plan to provide those new services?
Even though we see a lot of growth on 121, there are still things as far as entertainment. And I know there's a lineup coming to Grandscape and beyond. but entertainment not just for our median age group, but for our young adults in this city as well. You know, my son is 22 now, and every time that he wanted to do something, it was either Louisville or Dallas or Plano. We need more things for our kids in this city to do, and not just the adults.
Mr. McCurry?
Yeah, you know, entertainment is coming. We have gone overboard, I would say, with the Grandscape project in working with the developers at Nebraska Furniture Mart in order to ensure that it is a family-friendly destination to go to. And these businesses don't happen overnight. It's all about timing. So, you know, yes, I agree. My kids, like yours, who went to school together, you know, they had very few options. Had Hawaiian Falls for a while. Before that, there was really nothing. But today, coming, I mean, Top Golf out there is number one. We've got another venue called, you know, Virtual Round that is coming for everybody. And it is, you know, a dinner venue sponsored by Smith & Wesson. It'll be totally, you know, something different for everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Agudello.
I believe that community programs for children and families are what's lacking in the city. I believe the city can do more to provide informative, educational programs and also arts-focused programs for the city. A lot of the times on weekends, we'll have a family, what are we gonna do this weekend? I can't really afford this weekend to go out and do something big. I can't really go out anywhere. Let's see what the library has. Let's go to the community theater and see what's playing. It's close, it's affordable, and I think that we should be making a bigger effort to provide those programs for everyone in the colony. They're easy and they're accessible, and we should be doing more to make sure that everyone knows about them.
And Mr. Mikulik.
Repeat that question, please.
What needs for its residents do you believe the city is currently not meeting, and what is your plan to provide those services?
Okay, put another way, we've talked about streets ad infinitum here tonight. So getting around the town, we've got to continue to make that easier for folks, whether they're going across town to Home Depot or they're going to Roadhouse or wherever they're going. From listening to folks sitting up here, from having a young man who's a freshman, we need to get the word out of the things we do have, the programs that the library does have, the programs that Parks and Rec does have. I've had my son at theaters here, both at the Colony, over there by the government building. We've done programs at the library. He's done things at Hawaiian Falls. There's been Easter egg hunts. There's Halloween. In a nutshell, we as a city need to get the word out about these great opportunities we have. So we have great opportunities. It does sound like maybe we're not getting the word to everybody, whether it's knocking on a door, email blast, or advertising. That's what we need to improve upon. Thank you.
Okay, next couple of questions were submitted tonight, and we'll start with Mr. McCurry. This question is, unfortunately, the campaign finance reports are not due until next week, so they're not available. Can you please tell us who your top 2 financial donors are?
Absolutely. First one is sitting right back there, my wife, and the second one's sitting right here. So that's the answer to that one.
Anyone outside the family?
Very small, but right now we're funding everything, and so that I have done that for every campaign in the past that I have run, and it's all been funded. My wife allows me an allowance for this. But, you know, it does get costly, and it's getting more, you know, expensive every year. But it's something that we feel, you know, personal to us in making things, you know, happen. So we just fund it ourselves and just go on down the road, and we're happy to do so.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick?
The first one is McCormick Associations and Consulting, so that's a big chunk of it that you'll see next month. And then there are only two others, and those are private individuals. I was, of course, solicited by a lot of the contractors that I've known over the years, including the one who built Nebraska, but in my opinion, it would just create too much red tape and discussion, so I denied all those. So the majority of my contributions are coming from myself.
Can you name the private individuals, or you'd prefer not to?
Yes, Carl Economy and Daniel Murphy.
Thank you. Mr. Mikulik.
Yes, thank you. Our family has been funding this campaign. Luckily, some of the volunteers from the last election, we picked up the majority of our campaign yard signs, which is a huge expense, and have recycled those by adding the re-elect to those, and that saved quite a bit of money. So my wife and I have been funding this. I received a couple small donations tonight from two individuals that are here in the audience, and those are the donations I have. Thank you.
I'll ask you, do you wish to name the people, the individuals, or?
I think it would be one Jack Jones and one Dick Insweiler.
Thank you. Ms. Agudello.
So most of my campaign is funded by smaller donations, but the two top contributors are two former mentors of mine. I could name their names, but Sarah Rathke and Alicia Gravett.
Thank you very much. While we're getting personal, we actually had a few variations of this, and I picked this long-worded one. We'll start with Mr. Mikulik, but it is a confession time type question. Why not? Looking back at your personal life during the past 5 years, have you done anything that might lead to an impression that you acted improperly or immorally, and that might reflect on the city? If so, what changes have you made? If not, what guides you in your personal choices?
I would say no, that I've not acted in an immoral or irrespective manner.
Improper
Improper
or
manner.
immoral.
I would say my biggest challenge today is the young man who's down the road at the high school. He's a 15-year-old. I know a lot of you in here have had children and older children, and I share a lot of stories with you, and it sounds like there's still some more challenges ahead. What guides me are my parents, who I'm lucky enough to still have alive, the Bible, counseling from mentors, and that's what guides me handling that young man. Thank you.
Ms. Agudello.
I do not believe that anything in the 5 years I've done is immoral or improper, and a lot of that is because I've always had really big dreams and really big goals, and my mission growing up was to be a role model. I've always made it a point to help younger people who don't know quite what they want or what they're doing, and for me to even think about doing something that would tarnish that role that I've worked really hard to build up would be ridiculous. This is all I've ever wanted, is to help people, and to act in a selfish and improper way would be unwise.
Thank you. Mr. McCurry.
Thank you. I've never done anything that, would reflect on the city. From a personal standpoint, I am human. I do make mistakes. I can't, account for that other than the fact that I am human. I fess up to that. I'm true to my word. That is very important to me. And, if hurting an individual or one of my friends, I would much rather, just turn the other cheek and go the other way and just totally get out of the picture, because that's who I am. But standing up from a professional standpoint for our city is something that I will always do, and I will always make sure that our city is spoken well of, well defended, and well represented, so that everybody in Texas knows who we are.
And Mr. McCormick.
As far as do anything improper or immoral in the light of the city, absolutely not. A lot of my friends and people who've known me for years joke about the Eddie McCormick or the Eddie Mac. depending on what day of the week it is or what time. But there's a fine balance in everyone's life. Now, like Joe has said, we've all stumbled. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm divorced, obviously. I said I was a single father, and I've lived with that. But that redemption came when my daughter chose to live with me, even though the faults that I had. And to add on to that, I see some people here that I've known for years that after Lexi won homecoming, I took her to IHOP the next morning, and I saw our pastor from First Baptist that has since been retired. And he motioned me over and said, hey, you're running for mayor, right? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I'm going to vote for you. That was all the redemption I needed. This is the guy that baptized me, that married us, and even though he knew my past, he was there.
Thank you. And now we're going to move to a round that I didn't foreshadow, but we did it last year, so we're going to do it again. It's a lightning round, and also an opportunity to get to know you better. So if you'll keep the mic handy, we'll start with Ms. Agudelo, and I'm just going to ask 7 maybe admittedly frivolous questions and want to get your answer to it. And just pass the mic. And we'll just go in rapid succession, right to left and then left to right. First question, what's the most recent movie that you watched?
Oh boy, I believe it was the movie Home. It's a cartoon movie, and
Watched a rerunning of Godfather 3.
Actually, last weekend, Blazing Saddles from when my family was in town.
Mr. McCurry.
Actually, I was feeling nostalgic, and I watched Rocky Horror Picture Show.
We'll start with Mr. McCurry. Who's your favorite cartoon character?
Goofy.
Mr. McCormick?
I think that would be SpongeBob.
Mr. McKillick. This is all on tape.
Wile E. Coyote.
Ms. Agudelo.
Snoopy.
What's your nickname?
Yes.
Mr. McKillick?
Mick.
McCormick?
Eddie Mack.
Mr. McCurry?
It's a graybeard.
Who's your favorite person in Texas history?
Sam Houston.
Don't know really if it's a history, but Ann Richards.
Mr. McKillick?
Bryce Daniel Sr. is from my hometown.
Ms. Agudelo?
Also Ann Richards.
Ms. Agudelo, what's your favorite restaurant in the colony?
I really like masas.
Mr. McKillick?
Juan and Angelina's.
Mr. McCormick?
Texas Roadhouse.
Mr. McCurry?
Cozy Tie.
All good answers. And the last one, on any Saturday night in the colony, what's your favorite evening activity in the colony?
Absolutely, hands down, get on PS4 and play Call of Duty. Love it.
Mr. McCormick?
Meeting the guys down at Drunken Donkey.
Mr. McKillick?
Going to a city event, musical at the Colony High School or at the theater, and then coming home and watching reruns of Aggie football games when they have actually won an overtime game against Arkansas.
Ms. Agudelo?
Obviously before the parks close, but hanging out with friends, just chatting at parks.
Okay, thank you. We'll have 2 more questions, and then we'll do the closing. This next question's mine, and I'm just thinking of it now, so bear with me. But I picked up the ballot that we will be voting November 3rd to see what order you're in, verify that you're actually on the ballot, and you are, each of you. But before any of your names, there are 7 constitutional amendments. And I'll start with Ms. Agudelo. I'm not going to ask for a memory test of the 7, but in general, do you support the amendments? Are there any you oppose, or are you not prepared to respond yet? If you're not prepared, what will you do to prepare yourself to vote on the 7 constitutional amendments before your election? Yes.
So I was looking through and I saw that a couple of them deal with spouses of disabled or I believe it was veterans as well, as to when they pass, what their household, their income, their house, their estate, how that money is redistributed back to the government. I believe there were 2 or 3 ordinances being passed for that. I was able to do a little bit of research, and I think that it would be beneficial to those families if they pass, so I would be in support of those, I believe 2 or 3. The rest were shorter, so I spent less time reading them because at the time I understood them, but now I cannot remember them. But those 3.
Were there any that you opposed that you recall?
At the time when I was looking into them, no.
Mr. Mikulik.
Thank you. The one constitutional amendment that I support is the property tax exemption for spouses of veterans.
Thank you. And any that you oppose?
Not that I recall right now.
Mr. McCormick?
Like Kirk said, I knew that one was coming up after Walk on the Capitol earlier this year. I haven't researched or am not well versed in the other ones, but will do so, of course, before the election time comes.
Thank you,
Make
Mr.
the decision.
Mr. McCurry.
That particular amendment is long overdue for our veterans and their spouses. The families of our veterans absolutely give up and dedicate as much as any veteran. The other one that's on there of interest is, and still studying, is the exemption, the homestead exemption from $15,000 to $25,000. On its surface, that is a good move, and the only reason for my hesitation and still wanting to study and look at the details of this item is how is the state going to apply it, and trying to find out more information about that and that exemption, because it does affect revenues in all cities across Texas, and so you have to look at the big picture and study that before putting any of those exemptions directly into place.
Thank you. And the last question will be individual for each of you. Is a common question to find out about your voting histories, and we did this last year. So we have a tailored question for each of you about your voting history, and we'll start with Mr. Mikulik. In the past 10 years, you have voted in every election except 2005 and 2009 Texas constitutional amendment elections. Yet you did vote in the 2013 constitutional amendment election. Will you be voting in this year's constitutional amendment election? It's an easy question. But was there any reason for skipping the 2 that you did?
Some of you know that I do travel for work. I don't want to say a whole lot for those folks that might be casing my house, but I do travel for work, and quite a bit I'm out of state. And in that time period, I did a lot of traveling. That has reduced now, and I feel I will be able to make those elections. Thank you.
Ms. Agudelo, since registering to vote in 2010 in Denton County, your only ballot cast here was for the 2014 general statewide election. Were you able to register and vote in other elections while you were living outside of Texas? And what candidate or issue motivated you most to vote back here in Texas for the 2014 election?
Very tailored question. While I was away in Texas, I did not register to vote in Washington, D.C., mainly because it required a lot of time and a lot of paperwork. And when I'm at school, I'm focused on my studies. My parents did not work very hard to send me to a school for me not to study. And so what motivated me back here was I was back in the colony. It was a local election. I lived in the colony again, and I finally had the opportunity to participate in a Denton County election. I know Place 6 was where I was living, where I currently live, and that was up for re-election. And I saw that there were a lot of people running for Place 6, and it was really exciting to see so much diversity in a place that, has been occupied by Joel Marks for so long.
Thank you. Mr. McCurry, In the past 10 years, you have had 19 opportunities to vote. You voted in 16 of the 19, but did not vote in the local elections in 2007, 2008, 2010. Is there any reason you skipped those 3 elections?
Right off the top of my head, no. Matter of fact, I don't even remember skipping them, and I'm glad you told me. But, voting in this election, yes, you can bet I will be voting in this election going forward.
Thank you. And Mr. McCormick, in the last 10 years, you have had 19 opportunities to vote in Denton County, but only voted in 4 elections plus 2 party primaries. You voted twice in city council elections. Why did you not vote in more elections?
As Kurt said, and you can see by my attendance record at Planning and Zoning, I travel a lot with this national executive director position I had, and I do remember missing one that was very important to me because I was halfway between here and LA. But I do make it a point to especially vote in local elections. I shared a bench with a councilman now who used to be on Planning and Zoning, and we had some healthy debates with him about building standards. But even though I could not place a sign in my yard without fear of getting some feedback from my industry, I did make a point to make sure and get out and vote for him.
Thank you, and that brings an end to the questions, and it's now time for your final statement to the voters, and for that we'll start with Mr. McCurry. You have 2 minutes for your final statements.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said at the start, my term of mayor started in a recession. This council, myself, we have all worked together in order to bring this city to the point that it is today. Bringing that economic development has been key to our success and to making things better for all of us here in the colony. Is it slow? Yes, it is. I can't change that. Government has always been slow. But we are changing the face of this city, and I think we are changing this city for the better. Bringing in the businesses that complement our city and not just approving any business. It is very important, that we seek outside funding, like I mentioned earlier with Mayor Dillard. That $129 million came from the state. That was not out of your tax revenues. We improved all of those major roads from money that we went and received from other sources. This is the kind of things where we go out and partner with, throughout the state or whether it's in the county in order to help our community. That makes our tax dollars go that much farther. By doing that, we can then turn towards the inner streets, which we're now able to do. We will again look for, ways in which we can maximize the things we get. But as always, those tax dollars are always a year behind when we get the businesses. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. They think, hey, man, they see it come out of the ground, we ought to start getting this money. That's not true. We will make sure that when those revenues come in, that they are used effectively and efficiently. And in this election, I ask for each of you all's support and your vote to continue on doing the job that we started with this council and to make this city the best place it can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick.
All right, thank you. And first of all, I want to commend Yasmin. It's her age, and to be up here at her age, I barely was brave enough to do the basic training for fire department here, but so very good, Yasmin. And also, no disrespect when I've referred to Kirk and Joe by their first name, but we've worked together on boards and up at City Hall. But if I'm elected, and I've been really trying my hardest and having fun with it, that's the main thing. I have the privilege of working from home and having my own schedule, so I spend a lot of time during the day visiting local businesses and restaurants, hearing their compliments or their complaints. One of them is the grading system on the health scorecard. It's great. We're one of the few cities that have it, but it's antiquated and it needs to be electronic, and this is what we keep hearing. And I know they brought that up before, but I think what the city needs to do is get a committee together of those restaurant owners and listen to them. see what they think is fair, and work with them. It's great when we get these businesses come in, we pat them on the back. We've got Freddy's that's been here a month. They have a score of B. They had a light bulb out, and they didn't have cups on their lids. That B doesn't tell you what happened or why. It just says B. And this is a brand new ground-up building. Everything inside is brand new. So that's something that I would like to get changed. You know, walking around, knocking on doors these past 3 weeks, when you drive around town and you see one of those blue signs that say Eddie McCormick, just know that that sign's in the yard because I talked to that person face to face, like Miss Springfield across the street, or Dennis down on Aztec, who moved here when he was in his early 20s to buy his first home in the colony at $23,000, if you can believe that. You know, I sat in his backyard for 20 minutes having a beer, talking with him about the city and how he's seen it grown and how he's been in the same house, and I was the first person that stopped by to talk to him. And I'm here for you, and I will make sure that your compliments or complaints get answered, and we can move on and continue to grow the city like these guys have done.
Thank you. Mr. Mikulik.
Thank you. I want to thank Legacy Republican Club and all their volunteers for putting on this forum, which gives people a chance to hear candidates be put on the spot, answer tough questions, answer lighthearted questions, gives you an idea of our opinions. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. As part of this council, what we've done the past several years, and we've called it all different names, economic development, but what it boils down to is the American dream. Those 2,000 plus jobs that we have helped create here in the last several years give people chances to live the American dream. Those kids I talked about, where they've got a one parent at home or two parents that are working many, many hours, that's their opportunity to live the American dream, to stay within the colony and get well-paying jobs, be home, maybe make a choir concert, maybe make a football game, participate in their kids' experiences. That's an intangible, but you see it on those kids' faces when we're in the schools or when they come up to us at events and they're with their parents. Mr. Mikulik, I did your student leadership program that y'all have through the city. I'd like you to meet my mom, my dad. So I'm just really boil it down with that. I mean, my card talks about streets, alleys, sidewalks, and we've gone through this, police and fire, all these essential things that probably everyone is going to have as something that's important to them. Continue to get economic development. But I'm going to boil it back down to the American dream. The folks on council, the volunteers, the staff, we've helped people live the American dream. Do we still have a way to improve? Absolutely. Does Gates need to be improved? Absolutely. And we're working on it. As the mayor said, it takes time to do that, and we're doing our very best. I want to ask for your support in this re-election for place one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ms. Agudelo.
Growing up here, I was able to experience this small, tightly knit community. And for me, it was so important to my development as who I am right now. And I just ask myself a lot of these questions. You know, I represent a lot of different groups now in the city. I am able to see these perspectives for these community leaders who are involved and they're trying to make a difference. And so I ask myself, what can we do to encourage these community leaders to continue giving back, to continue to inspire them to work for our community? I think that it's so important that we get volunteers, we get families, we get parents involved in our city, because that's what makes the colony this small, wonderful place to live. And I think about the kids, you know, I loved learning growing up, and my parents really took advantage of these community programs in the city. And I think for the kids, how can we take their unbridled potential and help them grow into adults that love the community and who want to give back? I think about all of the young people who leave the colony and then they come back because the only reason is because they loved it here. They loved the colony. How are we going to take their voices and their opinions and be able to listen to them so they can contribute to the city? And finally, I've talked to a lot of people. They were born and raised here, and now they're raising families here. And for me, that is something that I would like to do. The colony is a wonderful place, and I would love to be able to start a family here. So me running in this election is more than it's just politics. It's a thank you to every single community member who took the time out of their lives to help me become the person I am today. Thank you.
And thank you all. We have 4 outstanding candidates. Thank you all for coming and participating, sending your questions. Remember to vote November 3rd. Get your friends and family to vote. Turnout won't be as high as a lot of elections. You will have a multiplier effect. You will have an effect in this election. Thank you all, and please join me in thanking and congratulating these candidates.
Before we go, can we, real quick, I'd want to thank Jim Johnson, our moderator for tonight. He did a fantastic job. If we could all give him a round. And thank you to all the candidates, and yes, and our timekeeper. And I'd like to ask Jeff Conley to come back up and give our benediction.
Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together as a community and meet those who are wanting to serve your community, God. We thank you for their willingness, for their heart to do it. We thank you for those who came out to see them tonight. Pray now that you give us travels mercies to wherever we're going, home or somewhere else, that be with us, keep us safe. And it's through your loving Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. And I'd like to give a special thank you to Karen and Wes Bledsoe for coming out tonight and videotaping this for us. This will be available on the city website. Give them a couple days and you can rewatch it again. And I believe it will also be broadcast on the city government channel. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.